Okay, there's no short way of doing these. You just have to work through them. I'm going to simplify the left-hand side. That is a special product, so I'm going to use a special product rule, and here's how you do that. This is going to be a trinomial, which means it's going to have 3 terms. And for the first term, you distribute the exponent to the first term, so v squared. And then for the last term, by the way, is always positive. And then you distribute that. So 5 squared, 5 times 5 is 25. And then for this middle term, you just multiply everything inside the parentheses you see together and multiply it by 2. So in other words, everything you see here, just forget the 2 is an exponent and multiply everything you see here. So 2 times 5 is 10 times v is a positive 10v. Okay, that's what the left-hand side comes down to. V squared plus 10v plus 25 equals 2v squared plus 18v plus 32. Okay, I need to move everything to one side because I have to have 0 on one side. I'm going to leave the v squareds positive, so I'm going to have to take this 1v squared and take this entire side and move it over. So the 1v squared becomes a negative 1v squared because you got to do opposites. So we're going to put that under our v squareds. A positive 10v becomes a negative 10v. That goes under your v's. And then a positive 25 becomes a negative 25. That goes under the constant term. Okay, so here we go. All these cancel out, which means you have 0. So 0 equals 2 take away 1, you've just got 1v squared, so you don't write the 1, you can just write v squared. 18 minus 10 is a positive 8v. And then 32 take away 25 is a positive 7. Now since we're solving, you've got to keep going. So we're going to factor the right-hand side by making 2 sets of parentheses. And we're going to split up the v's. There's 2 of them, so make it even. Since everything's positive, it's going to stay positive. Now you work backwards. We want the factors of 7 that when we add them equal 8. Well, the factors of 7, 7 divided by 1 is 7. That's the only factors of 7. But when you add those, you do get 8. So you want to put the biggest one first, 7 and 1. Now, because it said solve, you got to do the opposites of what's in the parentheses. So the opposite of positive 7 is negative 7, and the opposite of positive 1 is negative 1. And those are the 2 answers for that problem. Okay, for this next one, I'm going to simplify the left-hand sides with our special product rule. So that's going to give me a trinomial. I'm distributing the squared, so v squared. At the end, it's always a plus, and then 2 squared, 2 times 2 is 4. And then you just take everything and multiply it together, forgetting that this is an exponent. So 2 times 2 is 4 times v, that's a positive 4v. So the left-hand side is going to be v squared plus 4v plus 4 equals 2v squared plus 2v minus 11. So again, you want to keep your squared terms positive, so I've got to move the 1v over because it's smaller. That means everything on that side has to go over. So a positive 1v squared changes to a negative 1v squared because you're always doing opposites. Put that under your v squared. A positive 4v changes to a negative 4v. Put that under my v's. A positive 4 changes to a negative 4. And add your columns. Opposites cancel. So I get 0 equals 2 take away 1. That's just going to be a v squared. 2 take away 4 is a negative 2v. And then a negative 11 and a negative 4 is a negative 15. I'm going to now factor the right-hand side. So I make 2 sets of parentheses. I have 2 v's, so I split them up evenly, 1 in each one. Now, the signs are not all positive, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this first sign down. This other sign right here, I'm going to use a triangle to determine what goes in there. A plus and two minuses. What you want to do is you want to cross out what was in the original problem, and that tells you what comes over here. So there's no rules to memorize if you do that. Now we want to work backwards. The factors of 15, when I subtract them, equal 2. Well, the factors of 15, 15 divided by 1 is 15. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Okay. When you subtract those, you get 2. You have to put the biggest one first. So 5 and 3. Now because you're solving, you do the opposite. So the opposite of negative 5 is positive 5, and the opposite of positive 3 is negative 3. The next one, I'm going to simplify the left-hand side by using my special product rule. So u plus 5 squared is going to be a trinomial. I'm going to distribute the squared, so I'm going to get u squared. The last term is always positive, and then you distribute that. So 5 squared, 5 times 5 is 25. And then you multiply everything you see together. 2 times 5 is 10 times u. That's a positive 10u. So I'm going to end up with u squared plus 10u plus 25 equals 2u squared plus 11u plus 23. You want to keep your squared term positive, so you want to move the smallest one over. So I have to move the positive 1 over. So I'm going to change that to a negative 1u squared, put it on both sides under the u squareds. Positive 10u changes to a negative 10u, put that under the u's. And a positive 25 changes to a negative 25, put that in the constants. Opposites cancel, so I have 0 equals 2 take away 1, 2u squared take away 1u squared is just u squared. 11 take away 10 is a positive 1u, and 23 take away 25 is a negative 2. 23 negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to split up the u's, bring down the first sign, use your little triangle with pluses and minuses, and cross out what was in the original problem. So that means this is a minus here. I want the factors of 2 that when I subtract them equal 1. Well, the 2 divided by 1 is 2. So when you subtract those, you get 1. So you put the biggest one first, and then you do the opposites. The opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. And the opposite of negative 1 is positive 1. And that's how you do that.